here we have it. The Drum Dokta number 2. Yes, finally, here it is. Here's the video. Even the video is a little bit late. Sorry about that. But we'll be shipping this very soon. And the first thing I've got to say is the pre-order list is closed. I'm sorry about that, but we only have a limited amount, as stated. So this will be showing up in your local shops very soon. And if it's not available at your favourite shop, please ask them to get in touch, because we always want to get to more shops, of course. But anyway, as you can see, it's quite a bit different than the original, which is sitting here. Before I get started on that, I just want to say thank you to Sonic Potions and RYO for working with us on this. Couldn't have done it without you guys, so nice one. But yeah, let's just turn that down a bit so I can talk to you and tell you what's new, what's changed, and well, let's have a go. Anyway, so first off, we have the original controls from the original Drum Dokta. We had to make some budget cuts, should we say. So the first thing to go was the bandpass filter number 2, which on the original Drum Dokta was very subtle, to say the least. So we deemed that would be good to get rid of that. And we also got rid of the gain stage, or the output control attenuator rather. So you can see I'm using an external attenuator here. I would recommend to use the RYO air attenuator, which is very cheap, but most people have got some form of attenuators in their system already, so we got rid of that. But as a bonus, we put the clap in, because you can see the clap only came on the original expander. So we've added the clap, but we've removed the bandpass filter number 2 and the output attenuator. But those are kind of not really a big deal, or at least didn't think they were a big deal. Now for the sequencer, you've got clock in and reset, and you've got snappy and bandpass filter CVs from the original, and we've also got 6 trigger outputs. These come from 6 of the tracks. We don't have one for the clap because it's a complex event. We didn't actually have any more room anyway, so but we have one for the bass drum, snare drum, the hats, the cymbal, and the accent, so you can connect these up into your modular to other things. Let's have a look at the out. The other thing that was changed was the decay from feedback was on the original, it would turn into almost like an oscillator. We've kind of got rid of that in the scheme of things, because now we have a lot louder and quieter noise floor. So I mean, you had the original tone of the Drum Dokta with a lot less hiss. So we're quite proud of that. And on the end of this, we have the RYO Optdisc Junior. Now this is basically the RYO Optdisc condensed into the Drum Dokta 2. And at the moment it's in clear. You can see we've got 2 markers on, one at 6 o'clock, one at 12 o'clock, and then we have this thick back line. But basically at 6 o'clock, we turn it up a little bit now, we have a little bit of compression, a little bit of limiting, a lot less dynamic. So this was obviously better for those people who like to get maximized mixes. Whereas in the clean, maximum at clean, you get a lot more dynamics. You get a lot cleaner sound and a lot louder, but it's a lot more dynamics between the hits, so you can't get an overall louder sound. If we turn it to about halfway, we've got 50% Optdisc and 50% clean, and at 12 o'clock we've got maximum compression. Turn it down again. Maximum compression and maximum limiting. If we turn it any more if you turn it past 12 o'clock, that's your business, because as you can see, it's a nice big black line, and this is really going to test your power supply. If you've got a dirty power supply, it's going to introduce a lot of noise exponentially after 12 o'clock. I'll just give you a quick blast, and that's with the attenuator down. In regards to levels, comparing it to this thing, the original one, it's about 10 times louder, and up there it's anyone's business, but it's not our business. So I'll go over that again. That's 100% clean. That's with some less dynamics, a little bit tighter sound, maximum compression and limiting, and past that I'll turn it down. That's crazy town. But yeah, you know, you know, when you design something, you always want to put that extra bit in because you know that, well, this is the most we want to go, but there's always going to be somebody who wants to turn it to 11, and in this case, I think it goes to about 15. And yeah, that's for you, Derek. But anyway, back to clean. Compared to the original, like I say, the decay doesn't feed back anymore. If those of you who owned an original drum Dokta, you remember that the pitch knob would make a kind of a squeak sound. It still does. If you can hear that. Yep. So you know, an original drum Dokta owner now knows that it's the drum Dokta inside. There's no foolery. This really is a drum Dokta reincarnated as the drum Dokta number 2. Okay, let's have a quick look at the sequencer, the basic features of the sequencer. And I'll explain the complex features in a moment, the advanced features in a moment. But basically what you have here is a traditional XOX style sequencer, whereas normally it would be 16 steps. We've taken steps 9 to 16 and put them underneath, and we use a shift key to access them. This way we can save half the buttons and save a hell of a lot of HP, so you don't have to have a massive sequencer to get just a basic ZOX functionality. So basically the 3 buttons here, the red one is the mode button, and this will change between pattern mode and edit mode. The black one is the instrument select button, so you would hold this and select the instrument you want to edit, and it will go straight into edit mode. So if I wanted to edit, for example, the claps, and the white button here, this is the shift key so that we can access the lower steps. The red one will toggle between modes, this one will select an instrument, and this one will shift to the bottom row. Now we also have one more feature here, which is the mute feature. Now if we hold a key, and you can see the light lights up on all the tracks, we can turn off the bass drum, snare drum, turn off the claps, or turn them back on. And obviously that's kind of nice if you're having a live jam, you want to get that bass drum out there quick. You know, this sort of thing. Okay, let's have a look at the copy mode. To copy something, you basically have to activate the copy mode, and then you will just select the source and then the destination pattern. And this is much like a copy and paste on your computer. It's very simple. So let's just go to the second pattern. We'll play that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate the copy mode. That's by holding copy and following the arrow to the qualifier. Now we're in copy mode. We can see there's a solid light here, this is the current playing pattern, but it's not blinking anymore, just to signify that we're actually in copy mode. Now, to copy, you just press the source key and then the destination key. Now, you don't actually have to copy the one that's playing. I could copy pattern 1 to pattern 3, or pattern 3 to pattern 7, for example. Or I could change my mind and say, I don't want to copy anything. How do I get out of this mode? Well, you just press the red key again. That's if in doubt, just change the mode. It's almost like pressing escape, but it changes the mode, and it's also cancel as well. So let's say I want to copy pattern 2 to pattern 3. I activate copy mode, I source and destination. Now when I change to pattern 3, you can see that it's copied. Now I could edit this and make it different, or I could decide I didn't want it, so I could clear it. Now if I press the clear button and then the qualifying, follow the arrow to the qualifier, it's cleared the pattern. But what if I did that by accident? I'd be pretty upset right now. But don't worry, we have one level of undo. I just repeat it and it comes back. And that's pretty much it for clear. However, if you were in edit mode, and let's say we were using the hi-hat, looking at the hi-hats, and for sake of argument, let's set this the hi-hats to 16 steps, just so you can see it visually. When I'm in edit mode and I activate clear, what it's going to do, it's going to clear when the chase light passes that point. So for example, I press it now, deletes them all. There's no undo for this, unfortunately, except for programming them back in by hand. Okay, so let's look at the extended features, or the extend mode and last step feature. And what last step does, it enables you to set the last step of the current playing track, and the extend mode allows you to extend the track up to 64 steps. Now, depending on which mode you're in, you can either set the extend to an individual instrument or the entire pattern. So let me just quickly program a pattern, and I'm just going to put some bass drums in here. And this is a 16-step pattern. Let's get some hi-hats in there too. And some open ones, we all like open hats. And some accents just to beef things up a bit. There we go. And this is a traditional 16-step sequence. Now, if we activate the extend mode by holding the extend key and pressing the bank key, it will now copy the entire pattern to 32 steps. And if we extend it one more time, it will now copy it to 64 steps. And if we extend it one more time there, it will truncate back down to 16 steps. So all these other three will be lost again. So if you actually wanted to preserve these programming, you would use the last step instead. However, last step would be for individual instruments. So let's look at how extending individual instruments works first before we go into that. Now, just to recap, I'll go over this very quickly again. If I press extend once, it copies the entire pattern to 32. I press it again, it'll copy the 32 steps now to 64. And if I press it again, back down to 16. Now that's for every single instrument. That's the entire pattern. If we're actually in edit mode and do this, and I'll select, let's select the bass drum. And if I extend the bass drum now, it will now be 32 steps. Extend it one more time. We've got 64 steps of bass drum. Now to edit the bass drum, we just select the page that we want to edit on. Let's say we wanted to edit the last one and put a bass drum roll at the end. Okay. And when we come back to pattern mode by pressing the mode key, you can see we now have 64 steps. However, it's only the bass drum that's 64 steps. If we go to, for example, the snare drum, and we just program the snare in, you can see the snare drum is set to only 16 steps. Now, if I extend the snare drum now, I can extend the snare drum to 32 by extending once. And then let's say I wanted to make a variation. So we have the snare drum on 16, but the bass drum, which is the master track in all polyrhythm setups, would always be the bass drum. So you use the bass drum as your master track for timing between switching patterns. However, you can see that the snare drum is looping. Now we can get even further. Let's go and select the clap instrument. And then instead of extending the bank, I'm going to show you how last step works. When you activate the last step mode, all the LEDs will light up to the last step. So at the moment, the clap is on the 16 steps. I'm going to set it to 4 steps. So the clap track is now looping on 4. And we come back out to pattern mode. You can see that we're going through the 32 step snare, which is looping, the bass drum, which is 64 steps, and the clap, which is 4 steps. Now each track is independent of the other tracks, except for, like I say, the bass drum is the master track for timing. So you can have your last step on any step you like. You can even have it on one step. So if we go to the hi-hats and we set the last step here, instead of 16, we're going to set it to 1. And then we'll just clear these ones out, just so we can highlight it. So there's no hats playing at the moment, and then until I put one on the first step. Because this is looping on one step, I can set the last step to 3. I think you get the idea there. Every single track can be independent of the other track, except for the bass drum is the master track. And then that's pretty much it. That's how it works. If you wanted to, if you had a fully extended pattern, let's go to another pattern to highlight this. When you change a new pattern, there's an internal reset. You can do this via the reset end, but basically, if you have uneven polyrhythms and you change a pattern, sometimes, as any of you who use polyrhythms will know, it's not going to be precisely on the downbeat. So we set a reset so that it will reset for you, or you can do it manually, of course. But what was I going to show you? Yes, but if I extended this one, this is only 60. So if I extend it to 64 steps by pressing the extend twice, and I wanted to set everything to, let's say, the bass drum. I wanted to set the bass drum down to only to loop on the first one. I could just set the last step to 16, which will be there, and the bass drum is looping, but the indicator shows us still, even though the bass drum is the master track, the indicator shows us still that there's other tracks with more steps in them. But it will change on a single 16 steps, because the bass drum being the master track, it won't play all of the banks. It will only play where the last step is set on the bass drum. So we can set the bass drum back to 64 steps just by choosing the 4th bank and shifting to get the 16th step here. And now it won't change until it reaches the end of the bank.